Real quick, before we get into it, if you're not already following the show, then please hit that subscribe button right now. New episodes every single Monday and Thursday. You do not want to miss what's coming. All right, let's get into it. Over 62 years. That's how long it's been since November 22nd, 1963. Since a motorcade rolled through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, since 3 shots, or 4, depending on who you ask, and what recording you trust, and what decade you're doing the asking, rang out and changed the country forever. Over 62 years. In that time, we put men on the moon. We invented the internet. We put a supercomputer in everyone's pocket. We watched the Cold War end, the Berlin Wall fall, and the Soviet Union dissolve. We've had 11 more presidents. We've fought several more wars. We elected our first black president and our first female vice president, and honestly, just a lot of things have happened. And through all of it, through every single major world event since 1963, a significant portion of the American population maintained one constant burning obsession. Who really killed JFK? Not Oswald? Can't be Oswald. Too simple, too convenient. A lone gunman for this? For the assassination of the most charismatic president in modern American history. Cut down in his prime, the moment captured on 8mm film for the entire world to see. No, there has to be more. There has to be a room somewhere, men in suits, a whiteboard, a plan. The CIA, the mob, the Cubans, the Soviets, LBJ, the military-industrial complex. Oliver Stone had thoughts. At various points, 42 different groups, 82 different assassins, and 214 completely different individuals have been accused in conspiracy theories about this one event. 214 people. That's enough suspects to fill a very decent-sized theater. And for decades, literal decades, the files were sealed, classified, locked away. Which only made it worse. Because if it was just Oswald acting alone, why would the government keep anything secret? What are they hiding? What do they know? The conspiracy industrial complex, the books, the documentaries, the YouTube rabbit holes, the Reddit threads, all of it ran on one fuel. The files are sealed. Well, in March 2025, President Trump signed an executive order, and on March 18, 2025, the National Archives released them. All of them. All 80,000 pages. No redactions. 60-plus years of secrets finally out in the open. The conspiracy community lost its ever-loving mind. The internet vibrated at a frequency usually reserved for Marvel trailers. People cleared their schedules, and then the historians started reading, and what they found was interesting. Welcome to Ctrl-Alt-Delusion. I'm Nate, and today we crack open the JFK files, all 80,000 pages of them. So grab a snack, because this one's been cooking since 1963. So real quick at the top for anyone who needs the baseline, and I know some of y'all are younger and your history class may have glossed over this. Here's the JFK situation in 1 minute. John F. Kennedy, 35th President of the United States, youngest person ever elected to the office, war hero, genuinely charismatic in a way that feels almost mythological now. He had movie star energy in an era when that actually translated to political power in a new way because television was new and he was very good at it. He's in office during some of the most terrifying moments of the Cold War. The Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis, 13 Days in October 1962, where he came genuinely close to nuclear war and he talked everyone off the ledge. He's giving speeches about going to the moon. The country is obsessed with him. November 22nd, 1963, Dallas, Texas. Open-top motorcade through Dealey Plaza. 3 shots fired. Kennedy is hit twice. Governor Colony is hit. Kennedy dies at Parkland Memorial Hospital at 1 p.m. Lee Harvey Oswald, former Marine, defected to the Soviet Union at 20, came back, had a whole weird, complicated political biography, is arrested later that day. 2 days later, before he can be tried for literally anything, Jack Ruby, a Dallas nightclub owner with mob connections, shoots Oswald dead on live television. Live television, which somehow made everything so much worse. The Warren Commission, convened by President Johnson, chaired by Chief Justice Earl Warren, investigated for 10 months and concluded in 1964. Oswald had acted alone, and approximately nobody believed them. A 1966 book called Rush to Judgment tore apart the commission's conclusions and became a bestseller. Oliver Stone's 1991 film JFK, starring Kevin Costner, running nearly 3.5 hours, featuring approximately the entire cast of Hollywood at the time, opened with a disclaimer that said government files were still classified, ending with a statement that millions of pages of records remained secret. That movie won 2 Oscars and sent conspiracy theories into the stratosphere. Congress actually passed a law in 1992, the JFK Records Act, requiring the government to release everything within 25 years. 1992 plus 25 is 2017. They weren't all released in 2017, or 2021, or 2022, which again only made it worse. Every single delay was more fuel. Every redaction was evidence. The conspiracy machine ran hotter every year because the files stayed locked. Until March 2025. And now they're out. All 80,000 pages. So let's talk about what everybody expected to find, and then let's talk about what was actually in there. But first, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Are you tired of visiting historical sites that don't question the official narrative? Introducing Grassy Knoll Tours, Dallas's only walking tour experience fully dedicated to the other shooter. Our expert guides will walk you through Dealey Plaza, point to the exact spot where the second gunman definitely was, and tell you why the acoustic evidence from a motorcycle recording in 1978, later debunked by multiple independent studies, is actually the most important document in American history. Our deluxe package includes a laminated copy of every frame of the Zapruder film, with circles and arrows, a magic bullet commemorative pen, 1 hour with our in-house expert who has personally identified 47 different individuals as the real shooter, and complimentary access to our gift shop where everything is marked classified, even though it's mostly mugs. Grassy Knoll Tours. The truth is out there, somewhere in this parking lot. Tours daily, cash only. We don't trust Venmo. Back to it. Okay, before we get to what was actually in the files, I need to give the theories their proper moment because, look, these aren't crazy people. These are just people who looked at the evidence, found genuine inconsistencies, and drew their own conclusions. The "this doesn't add up" impulse is not crazy. It's human. It's actually pretty reasonable given what happened. So let's walk through them. And I want you to notice something as we go along. Each one of these theories has a very real receipt in it. Something genuinely weird that actually happened. That's what makes them so hard to dismiss. every single one has just enough true stuff to make the false stuff feel possible. So let's go. The CIA did it. This is the granddaddy, the one that shows up in basically every JFK theory in some form, because the CIA earned it. But here's what's real. Kennedy fired CIA Director Allen Dulles after the Bay of Pigs disaster, the disastrous failed invasion of Cuba that the CIA planned and Kennedy got blamed for. Kennedy reportedly said he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds. He was cutting their budget. He was allegedly moving toward winding down Vietnam. There were people inside the agency who were, let's just say, not his biggest fans. And then here's the weird part that the new files actually confirmed. Oswald was under CIA surveillance before the assassination. He'd been to the Soviet and Cuban embassies in Mexico City multiple times in the weeks before Dallas. And during that period, someone may have been impersonating him. A man describing himself as Oswald showed up in Mexico City who did not match Oswald's physical description. The CIA knew about this and never told the Warren Commission. So there is a CIA cover-up. That's very real. That's in the documents. And we'll come back to this, not necessarily a cover-up of murder, more like a cover-up of extreme embarrassment. But I understand why people looked at CIA withheld information about the guy who shot the president and said, "Excuse me, what?" Because, excuse me, what? The mob did it. Now, okay, so this one also has very real receipts, and the receipts are genuinely wild. RFK, Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General, JFK's brother, was going hard after organized crime. He was personally chasing Jimmy Hoffa. He had an entire task force dedicated to squeezing mob operations, and the mob was not happy. But here's the kicker. The mob had reportedly helped JFK win the 1960 election. They allegedly helped deliver Illinois. They felt owed, and when RFK came after them anyway, they felt specifically personally betrayed. And then, Jack Ruby, the man who shot Oswald on live television just 2 days after the assassination. Jack Ruby, the Dallas nightclub owner, with mob connections, who silenced the only man who could have testified. Right. The counterpoint, though, and it's a very real one, is that Oswald had zero known mob connections. None whatsoever. He was a Marxist who had defected to the Soviet Union and come back. The mob and the guy who defected to the Soviet Union don't really share a Venn diagram. How do you hire a hitman who has no idea he's working for you? But still, Jack Ruby had mob connections. Jack Ruby shot Oswald on live TV before a trial could even happen. That's not nothing. Cuba did it. Now, here's where it gets genuinely chaotic because there are two Cuban theories and they point in completely opposite directions, and both have receipts. Theory A. Castro did it. In retaliation for the CIA's repeated attempts to assassinate him, and I need you to understand how many times they tried. The CIA attempted to kill Fidel Castro using, and these are documented, exploding cigars, poison pills, a pen that was actually a syringe, a diving suit coated with a skin-eating fungus, and a scheme involving a seashell that would explode when Castro picked it up while scuba diving. A seashell bomb. The CIA's Cuba desk was apparently staffed entirely by Wile E. Coyote. Castro knew about the attempts. He survived all of them. Theory is, he decided to strike first. Theory B, Anti-Castro Cuban exiles did it, furious at Kennedy for pulling U.S. air support during the Bay of Pigs invasion, which they believed cost them their chance at retaking Cuba. In their view, Kennedy had promised to back them and then left them on the beach to die. So Cuba did it. Or Cuba did it. Same exact country. Completely opposite motivations. You love to see it. LBJ did it. Lyndon Johnson becomes president the day Kennedy dies. That's the motive right there. Motive as simple as it gets. The supporting weirdness, E. Howard Hunt, convicted Watergate conspirator, CIA operative, not exactly a man with a lot of credibility left, claimed on his deathbed that Johnson ordered the CIA to kill Kennedy. On his deathbed, which is either the most credible confession imaginable, a dying man finally telling the truth, or the least credible thing possible, a dying man who had spent his life lying just one more time. E. Howard Hunt said a lot of things. E. Howard Hunt was convicted of actual crimes. E. Howard Hunt is not what you'd call a reliable narrator. But he said it, so now it's in the pile. The military-industrial complex did it. Kennedy was allegedly moving toward pulling out of Vietnam. Defense contractors, military brass, the entire Cold War money machine, they allegedly couldn't let that happen. This is the Oliver Stone theory. This is JFK, the 1991 film. Kevin Costner in a courtroom for 3.5 hours monologuing about shadow governments and secret cabals. The movie that made this theory mainstream, the movie that won 2 Oscars, the movie that ends with a graphic telling you how many pages of documents were still classified. It's also the theory that requires the most people to have been in on it, which brings us to the problem that sinks all of these theories. Roscoe Drummond, a legal scholar, wrote in 1966 that a conspiracy to cover up the truth about the assassination would have to involve the Chief Justice, every single member of the Warren Commission across party lines, the FBI, the CIA, the Secret Service, the military doctors, and the White House. He called it a conspiracy so multiple and complex that it would have fallen of its own weight. Now that's a lot of people. And here's the thing about a lot of people knowing a secret. Someone always talks. They always do. 62 years, hundreds of people who would have had to have been involved. Multiple presidencies, multiple administrations, enemies of each other in power at different points. And nobody talked. That either means the most airtight conspiracy in human history, or it means there just wasn't one. Steve is saying he has a theory involving the Federal Reserve, the Vatican, the Freemasons, and a Dallas Cowboys quarterback from 1963. Steve, the Cowboys weren't in the Super Bowl yet. Also, that's 4 separate conspiracies. That's 5 now, Steve. No! Okay, March 18th, 2025. The files drop. 80,000 pages, no redactions, the whole thing. And researchers, historians, journalists start reading. Harvard historian Friedrich Logevall, Pulitzer Prize winner, literally wrote the definitive biography of Kennedy, said, "With respect to the assassination, there's little or nothing that's new, at least in terms of what I've been able to see." Mark Silverstone, a professor at the University of Virginia's Miller Center, "I didn't really see anything to change the narrative indicating that Oswald as the lone gunman was the person who killed John F. Kennedy, and that it was not the result of a conspiracy. The documents that I saw were, in some ways, tangential to the assassination itself." Al Jazeera's analysis: "None of the documents released appears to give any legitimacy to the decades of conspiracy theories." Northeastern University professor Edward Miller: The release provides a degree of transparency. Love the enthusiasm there, buddy. But nothing to change one historian's view that Lee Harvey Oswald was the sole assassin. The New York Times, no bombshells. NPR, no bombshells. Even JFK's own grandson, Jack Schlossberg, posted this on X. The truth is a lot sadder than the myth, a tragedy that didn't need to happen, not part of an inevitable grand scheme. That's JFK's actual grandson. 62 years, 80,000 pages. Oswald did it. I know. But here's the thing. Here's the part that nobody's talking about enough. Because the files aren't nothing. They're just not the secret second shooter and the CIA did it explosion that everyone wanted. What is actually wild in these files is the other stuff. The Cold War CIA stuff, the stuff that isn't about the assassination at all, but absolutely should be. And here's what was in the files, and I want you to appreciate how unhinged this really is. Not as a conspiracy theory, but as documented history. In 1961, 47% of the political officers serving in U.S. embassies around the world were CIA agents working under diplomatic cover. 47%. And the U.S. Embassy in Paris, 123 diplomats were actually CIA undercover agents. In Chile, 11 of 13 embassy political officers were CIA operatives. 11 out of 13. The two actual diplomats were the weird ones. The CIA had 14 Cuban diplomats on their payroll. People inside Castro's own government feeding information to the United States, including 2 Cuban ambassadors. While publicly we had no relations with Cuba. 2 ambassadors spying for us while their own president thought they were loyal. The CIA was running 10 covert sabotage operations per month inside Cuba, every month, for years. They were destabilizing governments in Latin America, infiltrating labor movements in Brazil, planning a regime change operation in Haiti that they themselves admitted wasn't working because these exiles are of very little use. This is all in the documents, people, unredacted, official CIA records. The CIA director bugged himself. That's in there too. CIA director bugged himself. French embassy break-in is in there. A whole list of what the documents called family jewels. The CIA's internal assessment of all the illegal and embarrassing things they'd been doing. None of this is the JFK assassination conspiracy. But it's so much weirder than that. The CIA was essentially running a shadow foreign policy across the entire Western Hemisphere, doing things that Kennedy himself, was apparently not fully informed about. Arthur Schlesinger, Kennedy's own aide, wrote a furious memo to JFK in 1961 saying the CIA was undermining the State Department and conducting operations in friendly countries without telling the embassy or the State Department. Kennedy was being undermined by his own intelligence agency. Just not murdered by them. Probably. Now let's take a quick break to hear another word from one of our sponsors. Have the JFK files left you feeling unsatisfied? Then introducing Warren Commission Closure Therapy, the only support group specifically designed for people who were promised a bombshell and got 80,000 pages of Cold War bureaucracy. In our weekly sessions, a licensed therapist will help you process questions like, why wasn't it the CIA? What do you mean the acoustic evidence was debunked? Are you sure Oswald wasn't a patsy? Why did Jack Ruby have mob connections if the mob wasn't involved? What is a magic bullet, and why does it need to be magic? We also offer our signature grassy knoll acceptance journey, a 12-step program for letting go of the second shooter theory. Step 1. Acknowledging that one person can, in fact, kill a president from a 6th floor window. It's harder than it sounds. Warren Commission closure therapy. The truth was always there. It's just really unsatisfying. Not available in Dallas. Too raw. Alright, everybody, let's land this thing. Here's what the JFK files actually gave us. What didn't change? The conclusion that Oswald killed Kennedy. 62 years of investigation, multiple committees, 80,000 newly released pages. Nothing overturned the basic finding. Oswald, 6th floor, 3 shots. One of them magic, apparently. What got confirmed? The CIA absolutely withheld information from the Warren Commission. They knew more about Oswald, his Mexico City trips, the possible impersonator, his surveillance, than they told investigators. There was a cover-up, just not of a murder conspiracy. The cover-up was the CIA covering up how extensive their operations truly were, how many assets they had, how many governments they were destabilizing, how deeply they were embedded in the entire Cold War. They didn't want Congress or a presidential commission knowing the entire picture of what they were actually doing. Not because they killed Kennedy, but because what they were doing was embarrassing, illegal, and in some cases actively contrary to official U.S. foreign policy. The CIA was protecting the CIA, not a murder. What the files are actually about. An unprecedented look at American covert operations in the early 60s. CIA agents disguised as diplomats in every embassy, 2 Cuban ambassadors on the payroll, 10 sabotage operations a month in Cuba, regime change plots across Latin America, a shadow foreign policy running parallel to the official one. That's genuinely wild. That's a story worth telling. It's just not the story everyone wanted. And here's the thing, Harvard's Lagavall put it best when he said this. People want there to be a grand conspiracy because it seems impossible that a lone misfit named Lee Oswald just decided to shoot the president. We human beings have a natural inclination to believe that great events must have great causes. JFK was shot by a 24-year-old former Marine with a rifle he bought through a mail-order catalog for $19.95 from a window at a workplace he got through a connection from his wife's friend. Not a secret society, not a room full of men in suits, not a conspiracy so vast it required 214 suspects. A guy, a window, and a $20 rifle. That's the tragedy that JFK's grandson was talking about. The truth is a lot sadder than the myth. Not sadder as in less dramatic, sadder as in genuinely sad. A preventable, random, human tragedy. Not destiny, not inevitability, not a grand scheme, just a man, a rifle, and a moment that changed everything. Steve is saying he's been reading the files for the past week and he found something nobody else has noticed. A connection that ties together the CIA, the Soviet embassy, the Freemasons, and a very specific Dallas barbershop. Steve, have you been to sleep at all? Steve has not slept. Steve says the barbershop is the key. Steve, buddy, go to bed. The barbershop is not the key. And that, my friends, is a wrap on the JFK files. 62 years, 80,000 pages, the most anticipated document dump in American history. And the verdict? Oswald did it. The CIA was absolutely doing bananas stuff across the entire Western Hemisphere and really didn't want anyone to know about it. And the truth, as it turns out, is not a grand conspiracy. It's just history. Messy, sad, preventable human history. All the sources, the National Archives, the Harvard Gazette interview, the VDem, wait, wrong episode. All the actual historians and documents linked in the show notes. If you want to go down the rabbit hole yourself, the files are available at archives.gov, all 80,000 pages. Knock yourself out. You've got the rest of your life. Then come find us over in the lobby, the Average Joe Nerdcast private Facebook group. Bring your grassy knoll theories. We'll roast them lovingly. I've been Nate, and remember, stay gold, nerd bold. The truth is out there. It's just less interesting than you hoped. I'll catch you on the next one. Now, before I get out of here, I got to take a second and shout out my brother from another mother, Ian. Whether he wants to take credit for it or not, he is for sure the co-architect of this entire Average Joe Nerdcast thing. Back when it was just a blog website, he was the founder of the Challenge Arena and the creator of Pixelated Punishment, The Spartan Trials, which, now that we've got the YouTube up and running, I'm hoping it's going to make a return, but we'll see. But much more than just AJN-related stuff, Ian has been here through all of this. From the early ideas, the late-night talks, the dumb bits that somehow turned into very real things, and he has been a huge and important part of my family's life. He's heading up to Wisconsin this week, starting a brand new chapter. And while it's weird knowing he won't be just right down the road anymore, I could not be more proud of him. Some people are friends, and some people are family. And then there's the people who somehow become both. And he's definitely one of those people. And I couldn't picture my life or my family's life existing in the same way without him. And I can't lie, it is going to be really weird with him no longer nearby. It almost feels like we just lost a party member mid-campaign and he's fast-traveled to an entire new region. But the truth of the matter is, you never lose a co-op partner like that. You just unlock long-distance multiplayer. Again, brother, I'm so proud of you. Go build something great up there. From me and my player 2, we love you, brother. And Wisconsin has no idea what's coming.
Game over.